Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. As you can see, I'm surrounded by books. Lily's here, as she always is, and I'm wearing a sweater. That can only mean one thing. I am doing my fall book recs video and I am so excited. I love fall. I love reading in the fall. Fall is my favorite season, but I honestly think reading in the fall is just the best because it's so cozy. I personally really get out of my comfort zone in the fall because I read more fantasy, mystery, things like that, because it just is the vibe of the season. So today we are going to be doing fall book recs. I'm going to give you so many, like I literally have so many surrounding me. They're literally everywhere. I made a list, but then as I was looking at my bookshelf, I picked some more. And then I also have some that I don't own, but most of them I do own. I have a few categories also. I like try to be organized. I have romance, fantasy, mystery, and then graphic novels. I have a few graphic novels that I've read in the past like couple weeks that I really love, so I'm gonna recommend those as well. So let's just get on into it. It's also a little bit like, I mean, it's sunny, but it's not like super sunny, but I feel like that kind of fits the vibe of the fall season. So first we're gonna do romance, which I think is behind me. I tried to organize, but I don't think I did. Yeah, all of these are romances. Perfect. First, we'll just go with the perfect fall read, which is The Dead Romantics. I almost forgot this, and then I was like, oh my goodness, I literally have it on my shelf. Also, my spine is literally like faded. I don't know why, because none of my other books are faded. Is the sun really like that bad that it's fading my book? Anyways, I recommend this every year. Some of these I recommended in past fall book recs videos, but I just love them so much and I have new subscribers. So anyway, so The Dead Romantics is basically about this girl who lives in New York City. She is a ghostwriter and she has to move back home because of a family emergency, and she ends up falling in love with a ghost. That is a very brief synopsis of this book, but it is giving such good fall vibes. I want to reread it this year, which will go in my fall TBR. Also, by the way, I'm doing separate fall book recs, fall TBR, because I have so many. So anyways, perfect fall read. Like literally, if you want one book to read in the fall, let it be this. And the falling in love with the ghost thing sounds weird, but I promise you it's so good. This is one of my favorite fall romances. It was so good. I love Ashley Paulson's writing. Oh, so good. Next, I have When in Rome by Sarah Adams. I couldn't do a fall book recs video without recommending Something About the Queen. This is the first book in the Rome, Kentucky series, and basically it follows Noah and Amelia. Noah is this grumpy pie shop owner. Amelia is a pop star and she is burnt out and decides to drive to Rome, Kentucky and meets the pie shop owner, and it is so good. I love Sarah Adams. I love the series so much, and you read this, you can read Practicing Perfect and get ready for Beg, Borrow, or Steal. It comes out in January. So anyways, love this. I feel like it just gives fall vibes because he owns a pie shop. It's in a small town. The cover is orange. I don't know. It just gives me fall vibes and I love this book so much. Oh, also this is Closed Door, by the way. I will try to like specify when a book is closed door. If I don't say it, it probably has spice. Next is Lisa in Love by Fallon Ballard. I love this book so much. I want to reread it this year as well. And basically it is a like roommates to lover situation. Sadie ends up needing a place to stay and moves in with Jack, who owns a brownstone in New York City. And I love a New York City setting. Lily. I love a New York City setting in the books I read in general, but specifically in the fall. Like this is just perfect, and there is some scenes that take place in the fall and Thanksgiving, so I feel like it's perfect for the fall. It's one of my favorite romances. I love it so much. It's so good, and I love Jack. Oh, it's so good. Next, You're Not Gonna Be Surprised, Before We Were Strangers by Renee Carlino. Basically my favorite book of all time. It is a second chance childhood friends with lovers set in New York City, kind of in the like early 2000s. It's so nostalgic and like it's just so good. It's like past, present timeline, and in the past they go to NYU, and I feel like that just gives fall vibes. You'll pick this up and read it in one sitting probably because it's just that good. I love this book so much. Please, if you read one romance, let it be this. Actually, there's so many good ones in this. Scratch that, you should read all of them. It's just so good. Next is The Roommate Pact by Allison Ashley. This one technically doesn't take place in the fall, I don't think, but I just love this book so much. It's roommates to lovers, and it follows Claire and Graham, and they're like best friends, and you're just following them. I don't want to give too much away, but I love Allison Ashley's books. I love her writing, and I just read her new release. It comes out in January. Incredible. But anyways, this is one of my favorite romances. I just love it so much, so I want to recommend it. I feel like I always recommend it in the fall because it just gives fall vibes. I don't know why. It just does. I feel like if I read a book in the fall, it gives fall vibes. And that's the way my brain works. Next, I can't do a book recommendations video without recommending More Than Just Us by Ali Atosky, my best friend. Love her so much. This is a second chance romance, and the past and present timeline. In the past, they are in school. In the present, they run into each other a couple of years later in college. And I feel like because they're like in school, it kind of gives fall vibes. And it takes place in Seattle where it's like rainy and cold. So I feel like it gives such good fall vibes. I don't know. I think it gives great vibes all year round. You should read it anytime. It is Closed Door. Also, The Roommate Pact is pretty much closed door. And it is very emotional. I would check trigger warnings before you read this, but it's so good. So good. Next, Last Time We Met by Emily Houghton. This is also another book that doesn't necessarily take place in the fall, but I don't know, I read it a couple months ago and it just is cozy to me. I feel like this is a quick, great book. It's also more emotional. I would say it's more like literary with a romance subplot. It has so much more than a romance, but I really, really love this book. It's like best friends to lovers, set in London. If you want a romance with no spice, more emotional depth, so much more than romance, like there's other things going on for the characters, highly recommend that. Then I have a few YA books. Actually first, let me do some of the books that I have on my phone. First, Business Casual by B.K. Borison. This is in the Love Light Farm series and it is set in the fall. It's so cozy, the vibes are just so good. Love this book. It is kind of like Friends with Benefits, but it's still so good. The banter is so good. I love these characters. I love the series. You should read the whole thing, but this one specifically takes place in the fall. Love it. Then we have But He's My Roommate by Anna Conwell. This is in the Carter Brothers series. This one also takes place in the fall. Such good fall vibes. Love this. So cozy. It's like brother's best friend, single parent, roommates to lovers, closed door. So good. Then The Makeup by Haley Gardner. This also takes place in the fall. It is best friends to lovers. It's so good, so cozy, so perfect. It's in the Falling for Franklin series. I love all of them, but this one is very much fall vibes because it takes place in the fall. Next is Off the Beaten Path by Madison Wright. I'm pretty sure this also takes place in the fall. It's so cozy, or it takes place in the winter. I don't know, really love this. Closed door, grumpy sunshine, like neighbors situation. I love this book. It's so good, and the second one comes out in a few weeks. So really love this. And then The Pumpkin Spice Cafe by Lori Gilmore. I feel like this one has been blowing up everywhere, and I read it. This is my first book in September and I really enjoyed it. I will say it's very spicy, but if you want like a cozy, good time, fall vibes, kind of like a cozy mystery, but with very heavy on the romance, highly recommend this book. I feel like it's just really fun. Next is Wild Eyes by Elsie Silver. I don't know why, this just gives me fall vibes. Maybe it's the cover, maybe it's that I read it recently. I have been waiting for my local bookstore to get it in, and it did. So I just need to go buy it. I love this book so much. Celebrity romance, single dad. So good. Second book in the Rose Hill series. Loved it so much. It is spicy. And then next, which might be funny, is Twilight by Stephanie Meyer. I read this actually in 2020 and I feel like it just gives fall vibes. So I had to recommend it in this video because I did read it years ago and really loved it. Watched the movies. So good. So if you want fall cozy vibes with vampires, if you haven't read Twilight, you should, and you should watch the movies. They're great. I'm probably gonna rewatch the movies this year because they're actually so good. And I flew through the books. Like, people like rag on them. They're good. Like, they're not high amazing literature, but they're good. They're entertaining and a good time. Okay, I think we are on to the fantasy, which, oh, actually, I lied. We have a few YA books. First, I have Check and Mate by Allie Hazelwood. This is her YA, but I would say more new adult romance, and it's like a chess situation, like rivals to lovers. Really enjoyed this. And then I have a few by Bridget Kemmerer that are like her YA emotional romances. I really love these, and they kind of give me fall vibes. I don't know. We have Call It What You Want. I feel like her books, her emotional YA romances, both of the characters are just dealing with something really difficult, and they just like help each other, and it's just really, really sweet. We have Letters to the Lost and More Than We Can Tell that are like in this like kind of interconnected standalone series. And this one has letters in it, which I really enjoyed, and this one is like the female main character works on games. Like, she does like computer programming or something, and the guy, he's like struggling with some trauma that he experienced in his past. So I would look up trigger warnings, but they are YA and they're just really good. If you want an emotional YA romance, I highly recommend all of these. Call It What You Want is probably my favorite. Also, the cover is just beautiful. Now we are on to the fantasy books. So let's I need to speed it up. I've been talking for too long. So I'm just gonna start with these because they're sitting over here, and that is the Once Upon a Broken Heart series trilogy by Stephanie Garber. There is the Caraval series before this. I did not read it and still enjoyed this. Obviously the characters, some of the characters in this do show up in that. So if you read that first, it's probably better, but I didn't, and I still love this. A Curse for True Love is one of my favorite books of all time. I have like literally 3 copies, and I plan to order the paperback of the UK edition. Anyways, this is like a YA fairy tale fantasy, and it basically follows Evangeline, and she makes a deal with a fate, and they're just following her. She ends up going to this place with all this magic she's learning about, and it's just so good. I feel like it's so magical and just perfect. I loved it so much. I feel like the first 2 books are kind of slow, but the end of the second book and the third book, so good. Okay, next, I'm just like going, whatever's next to me, is the Prison Healer trilogy by Lynette Noni. I read this last year and I loved it. Basically, the first book follows Kiva, and she's like a healer in this death prison, which is called Zalendov. She's literally working as the prison healer, obviously, at this prison. And this is YA fantasy. You're just following her. So many crazy things happen. The end, crazy. And then these 2 books are so good. I think my favorite is The Blood Trader, which is the third one. I read these so fast. I have a reading vlog, or like some bookish video that I did where I read these. I flew through them. They're so good. I feel like a little bit slow, but I just found it so interesting, especially because she's working in a prison. And there's romance, there's found family. It is just really, really good. I feel like it's easy to understand, great plot twists, crazy things happening. Love these. Next, we have the Defy the Night trilogy, which is Defy the Night, Defend the Dawn, and Destroy the Day. These are kind of like a kingdom fantasy, YA fantasy. All of these I think are YA pretty much. Basically, there's this like illness going around in this kingdom, and the female main character is like stealing medicine to like give it to people in need, kind of. And then she ends up going to the kingdom and stuff like that. It is just so good. I love this trilogy. I think the first one is my favorite, but I really enjoyed it, and it's complete. I feel like a lot of these are complete series, which is great. Super easy to understand, really good romance, found family. Love these characters, and it's just so quick. I loved this fantasy trilogy. Next, we have Throne of Glass. I couldn't do this recommendation video without talking about Throne of Glass. I did just bring one book in here because it's such a long series, but I do highly recommend starting with the Assassin's Blade, which is what I did. But this is basically about this female main character who is basically going to this competition to become the king's assassin, and you're just following her, but so much crazy stuff happens in the series. It is technically YA, I think, when she first published it, but I think there might be like one spicy scene later on in the series, but it's so good. Like, this series I will never stop thinking about. I love these characters so much. Like, people talk about the series and you're probably like, is it that good? Yeah, it's that good. Loved it so much. I do think it's pretty relatively easy to understand because I feel like the world building is like happening slowly. It's not like thrown at you all at once like Crescent City, which I did enjoy. But Throne of Glass is my favorite series by Sarah J. Maas, one of my favorite fantasy series of all time. Like, it's so good and it's so interesting. The romance, found family, incredible. Next, we have Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. I have the beautiful special edition, like first print run of these books. Oh, I'm obsessed with them. So basically, these are like, it's basically a heist. Like in Six of Crows, you're following these 6 characters as they go on a heist to do something basically, and it's so interesting and insane. And then the second one is even more insane. I gave both of these 5 stars, and I did vlog both of them I think last year, and they were just so good. Like the found family, the romance, like it is very much a fantasy with a tiny subplot of romance. Like, you're getting crumbs, but when you get those crumbs, you are eating it up. Like, it's so good. Some of my favorite fantasies of all time. I would say this is more fantasy than romance, but there is a tad bit of romance in there, and I feel like it's just really interesting. I also didn't read Shadow and Bone before. Still enjoyed it. My husband loves these books and did read Shadow and Bone and said it wasn't good and told me not to read it and just go straight into these. So that's what I did. But I love these books so much. Oh, some of my favorites. Next, we have Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows, which is another YA fantasy series. This is more historical fantasy. So basically, you are following the 2 main characters. They're journalists. It's like an enemies to lovers. There's letters. This one is so good. I think this one's definitely my favorite. I gave it 5 stars. And then Ruthless Vows, it's more fantasy heavy. There's like a war going on with 2 gods, and so you're kind of following that more in this one. And there's more romance in this one, but I still really enjoy these. If you like romance and haven't read much fantasy, I definitely recommend this duology because I feel like it's very romance heavy, and it's so good. Like, it's so sweet and just so good. I love the writing. Rebecca Ross's writing is just so good. So next, we have Dance of Thieves and Vow of Thieves by Mary E. Pearson. Oh my goodness, some of my favorite fantasy series, or some of my favorite fantasy books of all time. Honestly, like, I still think about these books and it's been a couple years since I read them. It's enemies to lovers fantasy. This girl is like a thief, and she is going to get something for her queen, and she runs into the sky. A lot of things happen. This one's like a 4.5, but I gave Vow of Thieves a 5. It was so good, so crazy. I could not put it down. I read most of this in one sitting. It was insane. So this is so good YA fantasy. I would say relatively easy to understand. Once you read like the first 40 pages of Dance of Thieves, you're good to go. And I loved it so much. If you haven't read it, such a great fantasy series. The romance is just so good. You're on the edge of your seat. Like, the stakes so high. Oh, I love that. Next, we can't do a fantasy recs without talking about these. We have Powerless and Reckless, and then Powerful is the novella. I have the UK edition, if you're wondering why it's paperback. But basically, this is a enemies to lovers fantasy romance. This world has people with powers, people without powers, like ordinaries don't have powers. And basically, Peyton is an ordinary pretending to be an elite, which has powers, and then she ends up in these trials. She meets the enforcer who kills ordinaries, and it's just insane. I do think Powerless is definitely my favorite, but Reckless I still enjoyed. And then Powerful is a little novella about a side character. The 3rd one comes out in April, I want to say. I really enjoyed this. It's great fantasy romance. If you love romance, want to get into fantasy, this is what you should read. So good. Next, we have the Infernal Devices trilogy, which I read a few months ago. This is in the Shadowhunters universe. I watched a video on how to read this series, and I chose to read it in chronological order, and I do recommend that. I've seen people read the Mortal Instruments first and not enjoy it. And I would say that you should read the Infernal Devices first because you will enjoy it. And then you can read it in chronological order because the Mortal Instruments happen after the Infernal Devices. But basically this is about a girl named Tessa, and she moves from New York City to London in the Victorian era, and she meets these Shadowhunters, and you just go from there. It's so good. The romance is so good. It's so interesting. It is very much like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like obviously like the Victorian era, so like there's balls and like it's in London set in this like castle thing. I don't know, I just really enjoyed it. It's YA. I feel like pretty easy to understand. I feel like it's a great starter into the Shadowhunters. I am kind of in the midst of reading the first book in the last hours, but I haven't finished it. But anyways, really enjoyed this trilogy. I also vlogged reading this if you want more of my thoughts, but just a great YA fantasy. I love the romance. The third one is my favorite, which is Clockwork Princess. Love these so much. Okay, I think the last fantasy series, oh wait, no, I have a standalone, which is Bring Me Your Midnight by Rachel Griffin. This is like a witchy, like fantasy romance, kind of a cozy witchy romance. Basically this girl, she's like planned to marry the governor's son to like, you know, keep things great between the witches and the humans. They like make potions and stuff. It's like very pretty simple magic, and it's just really good. It's a standalone, a fantasy, which is great if you're not wanting to get into a series, and it's very cozy. It reminds me of H2O, which doesn't make any sense, but the magic kind of has to do with water, which reminds me of H2O. So I really recommend this. It's also YA. Now onto my new favorite series. I am obsessed with this series. So we have the Belladonna series. Oh, this is not in order at all. The Belladonna series, which is Belladonna, Foxglove, and Wisteria. And I talked about these in my wrap up, and then I just read Wisteria in a reading vlog, so I won't talk much about that because it'll be in the reading vlog. But this is a gothic fantasy, and basically the first book follows Signa, and she, basically everyone around her dies, and death follows her like a physical being, like a character, and you're following her. She moves to this new manor, Thorngrove, and meets some family, has to figure out a mystery. The second one is also a mystery, and then the third one follows a different character, or two different characters. This one's my favorite. Oh, it was so good. But this is like so atmospheric, so eerie and spooky, but like perfect for this time of year. Like if you want to read a fall fantasy series, read this. It's so good. The romance is so good. The writing is so good. It's kind of also in the Victorian era a little bit, and I just loved it so much. I highly recommend the series. I will say it has a little bit of spice. It's very vague, but I would not say it's like no spice. So my library puts it in new adult, but anyways, all these fantasy are like YA, new adult in that area. So anyways, I love these so much. Okay, now we're on to the mystery. I will shut up soon, I promise. We have the Inheritance Games, obviously, which is like a YA mystery situation. You've probably heard of it. I only got the first three, but there is like spin-offs. Basically, you follow Avery. She gets this huge inheritance from this man that she doesn't know, and she goes to his house and meets his grandsons, and you're just following that. It's really good. I really enjoyed it. Then we have the Natural series, also by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is like Criminal Minds with teenagers. I love this. It's my favorite series by Jennifer Lynn Barnes that I've read, and it's so good. I feel like these books you like fly through. Like they're so quick, so interesting, like keeping you on the edge of your seat. I do think the third one gets a little creepy, or the fourth one gets a little creepy, but I still love the series. It's perfect for this time of year. Okay, now also another little, oh no, things are falling. Another little like mystery situation, kind of spooky, is Small Spaces by Catherine Arden. This is like a middle grade kind of spooky series. It's basically about this girl who finds this book, and it's about this farm with these missing people and these scarecrows, things like that. It's like a spooky little story. I really enjoyed it. I feel like it's not scary. It's just like quick, fun, like great for this time of year because it is giving spooky vibes, which I enjoy, but it's middle grade, so it's not like super scary. I do recommend it if you're wanting something spooky but not too scary. How many times can I say spooky? But I really enjoyed it. It's a series and I can't wait to continue it. Now onto the graphic novels. I have three, one of which I own, which is Pumpkinheads by Rainbow Rowell. This is a cutie little graphic novel about these two teenagers who have been working at this pumpkin patch every year, and it's their senior year and the last day that they will work at this pumpkin patch. It's Halloween, and it's just such a cute time. I read it like an hour. It was just adorable. Love it. Highly recommend reading in the fall, maybe even Halloween, because it takes place on Halloween and I just really enjoyed it. If you haven't read a graphic novel, it's basically just pictures and words, and it's a great grand old time. Like I love this. There's also a map in it, and it's just really cute. I really enjoyed this and highly recommend for this time of year. And then the other two are Garlic and the Vampire and Garlic and the Witch, which are cutie little graphic novels about Garlic, who is like facing fears, learning, growing, learning to deal with change, things like that. It's literally about these little plants that talk. They're really short, probably like 30-minute little graphic novels, but they're so cute. So I really recommend it if you just want a good, quick, fun time for the fall. So I thought this was gonna be a lot quicker than it was, but I've been talking for so long. So those are all the book recs that I have for the fall. Surely you got a book rec out of this video because I had so many, but I hope you enjoyed. I love doing these videos. I have so many more fall videos to come. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.